Okay, looks like we're live now. All good. We had a slight problem connecting with the internet, but we seem to be okay now. Good morning, or good evening, good afternoon, everyone. Just let me know if you can hear me and see me, if the connection's okay for people. I can see the chat here, so you can let me know. Wonderful. That's good. That's great. Nice to see people dropping in from all over the world. Lovely. I wonder if you can hear the morning bird song where I am. The windows aren't open, but the sound's coming through. We've got a beautiful spring morning here. Spring is a very beautiful time. I'm sure it is everywhere. So it's been really enjoyable to have the warmer weather and nature coming alive after winter. I'll just mention before we start the meditation, while people are still joining us, and I'll mention it again at the end. So we'll do this meditation, live meditation session again in 2 weeks' time. For us, it will be the 3rd of October, Monday the 3rd of October here. And we will have just switched over into summertime, daylight savings time. So just be aware that might affect wherever you are, but our link to the world time zone will still get you the right time. Everything adjusts. So we go forward 1 hour, and I'm not sure actually if in the Northern Hemisphere that coincides with you going back if you're on daylight savings time over there. So I'll mention that again at the end for people who drop in later. Nice to see a few people from Australia joining in, different parts of Australia, because it's a nice time on Sunday morning. And in England and the US. Who else have we got here? Canada, lovely. Very good. Another Tassie baby. Also, just to mention that the next fortnight, even though Jayasara mentioned we will alternate with these fortnightly sessions, she's going to be away next fortnight on joining another retreat elsewhere. So I will do that again in 2 weeks' time, and then she'll be back for the following one. Okay, so let's settle in. Hello from France, lovely. A bit late in Europe, but I'm sure there's a few people who'll check in later. Yeah, so let's start to turn our minds to the meditation. Just a little bit of reflection first. And one thing I've learned from the Tibetan tradition, even though it's also within our Theravada tradition, but a very specific way to turn our minds towards Dharma, to bring our attention to the present moment and recollect reality here and now, is by thinking some very profound, specific thoughts. And these are called the 4 mind turnings, or the 4 thoughts that turn your mind to Dhamma. So I'm going to mention those as we begin the meditation, because there's something that can really help us, have really helped me to be very specific about this, even though it's within our way of contemplating, to be very specific, particularly as we prepare for meditation. So the first one is really to just reflect on this life, this precious life that we have, that we find ourselves here and now in this circumstance, being able to connect with each other in different parts of the world and different time zones. We're able to connect in this present time together, to come together to reflect on Dharma, to open our minds to the truth, to reality, with an intention to learn, to understand, to recognize something that can bring us to peace, to truth. Okay? So recollecting this precious opportunity we have right now, each of us tuning in, it's such good fortune that we have the ability to do so. This precious life, we have the opportunity. The Dharma is at our doorstep. No matter what our life situation at the moment, no matter what our karmic predicament, right now, we're here together with the circumstance that allows us to reflect on Dhamma, to open the mind to truth. So this is a precious opportunity. If we think about all the different beings in the world, not just all the different human beings, what they're engaged in right now across the whole scale of wholesome and unwholesome activity, karmically productive for happiness or suffering. There's not many people right now able to turn their minds to reflect on truth, let alone willing or wanting to. But here we have this precious opportunity. So this is the first recollection to help bring our mind to this moment and make the most of it. So the second reflection, the second thought to bring our mind is to reflect on, while we have this precious opportunity in this life, death is never far away. In a way, death, the inevitability of death, it's the only sure thing in this life. Each of us, all beings, just as all beings, but each of us, all things that have been born must pass away. So we will each meet that time of death, the dropping of this body, but we don't know how it's going to happen and we don't know when. But to bring this to mind, the Buddha really encouraged us to reflect regularly on the inevitability of death, not to become morbid, but to awaken us in this moment, again, to this precious opportunity of dropping the mundane concerns that we get involved with, and often a lot of petty grudges and regrets or whatever, but to actually say, you know what, do I want to be holding on to this at the time of death? If death might come today or tomorrow or the next day or even in a decade, but it can come anytime. What's most important? To cultivate, to recognize. So this reflection on death brings us again into this present moment, being open, being aware, and recalibrating what's most important thing in life to give attention to. And moving on from that to reflecting on impermanence, the truth of impermanence. Everything in this life, no matter how beautiful or the things that we desire, the things that we have, it's all slipping from our grasp. It has its own lifespan, its own momentum. There's nothing we can hold on to or keep the same. Everything is changing all the time. Everything that we accumulate in this life, materially, intellectually, we cannot take with us. It is all just left behind when we pass away, when this body dies. So again, this reflecting on impermanence is recalibrating. What am I hanging on to? What's worth hanging on to? The Buddha, in his summary, the briefest summary of his whole teaching, he was asked to briefly summarize the import of his teaching. And he said, nothing whatsoever is worth clinging to. Just that. And I find that really powerful. Not that he said nothing whatsoever should be clung to. He said nothing whatsoever is worth clinging to. Because the very act of clinging in and of itself is stressful. And it doesn't work. We can't hold on to things because of the nature of impermanence. So this habit of clinging is just that. It's a habit that's misaligned with truth. And it merely causes stress. So to wake up to this truth. And we can do that through reflecting on impermanence and seeing impermanence all around us and within us, every day, every moment. And the fourth reflection, the fourth mind turning, is reflecting on the law of karma. Whilst we have this precious opportunity of life, and whilst there is nothing material that we can take with us when we die, what does follow us, the Buddha says, is the results of karma, the results of action, intentional action, for better or for worse. This is a really powerful reflection. People often ask, what is it that gets reborn if there is no permanent self? What's reborn? According to the Buddhist teachings, it's actually the momentum of karma, which results together with, if one is not fully awakened to the truth, together with craving and karma, consciousness becomes re-established in some form according to karma, according to the results of action, wholesome or unwholesome activity. So karma, the law of cause and effect, is just something to reflect on in our lives. How, and we can see this, it's not about believing that that's what happens in the future. We can see this in our everyday life. If, we're holding on to anger and we're not really being conscious about that, we can spend our days being gruff with people, to them angrily or in a unpleasant or unkind way. But also this maintains a state of suffering in displeasure in ourselves, and we're not recognizing that. As soon as we recognize, which is the most powerful positive karma, positive action, the action of letting go, of clinging. This results in peace, this results in happiness. And when your mind is happy and peaceful, how do you relate to others? With kindness, with compassion, just naturally, with joy, with love. That's how it happens. So this is the law of karma in action in the present moment. So karma has immediate results, but there's also long-term results that reverberate through time, if you like. So this is powerful to reflect upon. So with these 4 mind turnings, bringing our mind to the present moment, the profundity of the Dhamma, also reflecting on the drawbacks of what we call samsara or cyclic suffering, which is really the habitual mind that doesn't understand how things work. So it gets habitually caught in suffering and creating suffering without understanding how to release the mind from that, release the heart from that, to recognize the true nature of the mind and to wake up to that and to dwell there or rest there. And this really brings the best out of our human life for oneself and others. So there is this way of reflecting on suffering and its causes that actually bring us to a place of release or relief from that suffering. So coming now into a more meditative mode once we've contemplated those things, I'd like to draw your attention to be aware of the body, just wherever you are, whether you're sitting or lying down. Just become aware of the feelings, the sensations of the body in the space that you're inhabiting right now. The feelings of the weight of the body against the cushion on the floor or the chair. The feelings, sensations of the breath as it in and out of the body. How does this body feel right now? Just tuning into that. Not trying to find a label for it or think about it, analyze it, but just tuning into it. Opening to the experience of embodiment. And just knowing it feels like this right now. And you'll become aware of the movement of the mind as much as you're aware of the physicality of the body. So just know that as mental movement. It's just the momentum of the thinking mind. But see if you can just tune in more and more to the physicality. Bringing your attention more to the elements of the body. and the breath, the experience of that. We can be aware of any sounds that are happening around us. The sound of my voice, and sounds are intermittent. They come and go, appear and disappear in awareness. And the body sensations are also like that. Different sensations appear within awareness, appear and disappear. We habitually label this my body in a very unconscious, subconscious way. Let's see if you can just be aware of body sensations as just sensations arising and ceasing in the present, appearing, disappearing to awareness. So the experience of the body on this level is a cascade of a whole lot of different sensations. Like an orchestra, a massive orchestra of different sensations, different vibrations. But what we're aware of, what we become aware of, depends a little bit on, or depends mostly on where our attention is directed. So in this meditation, we practice to direct our attention very gently to be aware of the breath sensations. So we follow the movement of the breath coming in and moving out of the body. And we know that through the sensations we feel along the breath channel. So just spend a few minutes exploring, being aware of this channel of breath sensations as it moves in and out of the body. Quite naturally, our attention will still pick up on sounds and other sensations and thoughts. That's natural, particularly in the beginning of meditation. So, whilst we recognize this, we continue to just very gently nudge attention to recognize the breath. So the breath sensations we bring them more into the foreground of our awareness and let the other sensations, sounds, thought, impressions, that they can be there, but let them recede into the background. So we don't push them away or try to ignore them, but just a gentle nudging of our attention to recognize the breath sensations, which are always changing, they're always different. We can't get a hold of one sensation and keep it. We just notice this stream of sensation connect with the breath. As we do this, you might notice that there's a calming quality to the movement of the breath. This simple tide of in and out breathing. As we gently pay attention to that and let the rest recede into the background, the quality of the mind begins to change. We notice a calmness as fragmentation begins to lessen. We're learning to let attention stay with a simple stream of sensations. And this brings a natural calm and clarity just by itself. We're not creating those things. We're just this gentle focus of attention is allowing that. Any other thoughts or sensations? Or concentrate so hard on the breath that it's creating tension? It's not about really strong effort. It's just about recognizing present moment sensations, connecting with the breath. And we might keep losing track in thought. As soon as you recognize that, let go of other concerns, the nagging concerns that we usually carry. And tune in to this present moment experience of the simplicity of the body breathing, just being here. For some of you, particularly if it's late in the evening, it might be a little easy to drift into sleep or sleepiness. See if you can, instead of getting pulled into a sense of sleepiness, see if you can just notice this lovely quality of calm. It's a sleepiness. See if you can just notice this lovely quality of calm. It's a subtle, pervasive sensation of sweet calming. Notice the pleasure of that. Very subtle. It might become stronger. But that interest and enjoyment of this quality of calming will be enough to keep the mind awake, aware, and lucid, even as it relaxes more and more. As the body-mind relaxes, the breath sensations and the movement of the breath become more refined, become lighter. So the quality of our attention, application of attention also becomes more refined and light. We can begin to notice the natural spaciousness of the mind, of awareness. Even as different sensations or thought impressions may still appear and disappear. And start to notice the quality of space or awareness as the field or the context of such experience. You can allow your mind, your attention, your awareness, depending where you're at, can rest the mind in this quality of spaciousness or the recognition of awareness, or still on this subtle flow of breath sensation. being interested in this progress of how the mind changes in meditation. Not so interested that we cling to objects and appearances, but just noticing how it is. This experience of being. And all the while, this quality of awareness can be a sense of our refuge as we journey. Innate awareness, nothing that we need to create. It's already present. Becomes more and more a refuge, a place of rest for this body, mind, and the subtle attention. This is the essence of the Buddha mind. Wakeful awareness, here and now, that naturally knows the way things are. Whether pleasant or unpleasant, there's a natural knowing and a non-clinging, an openness. Just knows things as they are in reality. Reality. We can start to discern quite clearly the movement of the intellect, the thinking mind, as neurons fire. But we can see that to arise and cease. Thoughts, like any other sense impression, arise and cease, come and go, and are conditioned by nature. They're not stable, they're not reliable. And they're not worth clinging to. It doesn't mean we push them away or judge them. We just see they have a karmic momentum, they appear and disappear. We don't have to cling. Our refuge is in this awakened awareness, here and now, ever present, the place of ultimate rest, the placeless place. So allowing yourself to, in your own time and gradually, connecting more strong breath and the body. And in your own time, coming back into this shared space of the screen and the live stream. And we have an opportunity for some questions over the next. Is not clinging, of non-clinging. You'll notice that it's this that allows a sense of fullness. This paradox of words. When the mind is not clinging, it can experience this quality of what we call emptiness, which is actually felt as a deep fullness. When the heart is no longer fragmented, its attention not fragmented over so much movement, it can experience its own innate peace and sense of fullness. And it's just a natural flowing of blessings from that, of love, feeling of love, connection, gratitude, a natural understanding that can arise about the nature of this body mind and the nature of things. So this guided meditation is very simple, working with the body and the breath, something that we practice in our life and in different circumstances. Our experience won't always be the same. You might not always feel peaceful, but we can always learn something about this body mind, how the mind clings, how the mind suffers through clinging. Clinging also means rejecting, not wanting as much as wanting. And we gradually learn how to keep the mind open, which is this quality of not clinging or letting go, letting be. And these other I'm being told my connection's unstable, so let's hope we maintain a decent connection. So let's hope we maintain a decent connection. Okay, there may be some connection issues. Someone's signing out to see if they can get a better connection. No questions arising as yet, so there may be some connection problem. Just checking now. Am I still being heard and seen? Can someone let me know? Great, good. So in general, we're okay. Good, good. Okay. Any questions coming up for people or comments? So how is that meditation for people? Were you able to connect with the breath in such a way? Most people can struggle with thoughts that continue to hijack attention. And Paul's asking, how do these public meditations help you? Are you asking me, Paul, how they help me? Someone said the mind turnings were very powerful. That's good. Yes, I do find them powerful. Very helpful to reflect in that way. So we'll just start with Paul's question. He's asking how these public meditations help me. So actually, I find them quite helpful because personally, as I do when I am guiding meditation for others, it actually helps me stay more present because I am guiding others. So I'm very much aware of this kind of embracing of the space or the field, if you like. So I actually get a lot out of it because it helps my focus tremendously. And meditating alone, as many of you know, it's easy to stay a little bit more caught with your habitual momentum habitual thinking momentum. But the more you become accustomed to recognizing space and awareness, the dropping of your attachment to thoughts or disturbance from thoughts becomes easier, and you're more able to move past the disturbance of thoughts. Not trying to do it as such, but just being with the words and sensing the softness. Very good. Caught the mind wandering, but just tried not to judge myself and return exactly. The mind wanders all the time, or it's just thoughts arising, ceasing. Just practice letting them be or letting them go. Sometimes when we tell ourselves to let go, we can do this subtle pushing away. And so if we notice that, tell ourselves just to let be. And it removes that subtle aversion or rejection. And we can rest more in this quality of being wherein thoughts just appear, disappear, or fly through the space, just as a bird flies through, ultimately leaving no trace. Just scrolling back for these questions. Is religion just a bunch of naming? Just noticing things is helpful no matter what it's called? Exactly. Everything's just a bunch of naming, a bunch of labels, everything. So religion is no different from that, or spiritual practice. So there's different traditions of spiritual practice will use different words and concepts, paradigms for creating this structure of a certain journey from suffering to the end of suffering, or from a suffering soul to God, if you like. You can use different words. We're really talking about being caught in ignorance and finding the way of release with full awareness and full wisdom. So words are just something the mind creates. Obviously, we're all conditioned with our different social conditioning, different languages to communicate. And this is really powerful to keep reflecting on, because words create concepts, and concepts can help lead us to liberation from concepts, but they can also entrap us if we're not recognizing the conventional constructs of conceptual creation. So this can be hard to get a handle on. It's usually grappled with more towards the latter part of the path of practice, as you see the constructing activity of the thinking mind, how it constructs realities, whether samsara or nibbana. And attachment to thought, attachment to views, attachment to conceptual constructs, or even the identification with conceiving itself, are all fetters to be recognized and relaxed out of eventually, ultimately. When you were speaking about reality, did you mean the reality of form, the reality of the underlying substratum, or both? Well, both. Reality in Buddhism, we have this word Dhamma, which has so many different meanings. One direct translation is reality, but there's the mundane reality, or the conditioned reality, and the supramundane, or the unconditioned reality, to be noticed. So when I talk about noticing the way things are, this has two levels, but can be perceived directly. The way things are, thoughts arise and cease. So we see the Dharma of a thought as a mental object. It arises and ceases. So we recognize thoughts are just that way. That's recognizing the conditioned reality. But in the same space, if you like, recognizing the impermanence of thought, that it's not self. And if you cling to it, if there's clinging involved in that, there's dukkha. This is recognizing the reality, another level of reality, of Dhamma, which is the truth of these characteristics of all conditioned things, all conditioned existence. Anicca, dukkha, anatta, impermanent nature, the not self nature, in that when things appear and disappear, they have no lasting substance. They're not who and what I am, even though we habitually think they are and cling to them. And when we cling, there is this experience of stress or suffering. So recognizing this level of reality, Dhamma, is liberating. It can release the mind from ignorance, from clinging, release it from suffering, to recognize the unconditioned nature of the mind, which is the ultimate Dhamma, the ultimate truth. So Dhamma as truth, Dhamma as ultimate reality. So we use these words, ultimate, conventional, supramundane, mundane. They're also just words, and ultimately are a constructed duality. So we see more and more into the nature of reality as we investigate into this mind itself. I feel like I am at home when meditating, a refuge of sorts. However, when in the world and about, although more mindful, however, when in the world, might be saying I'm less mindful in the world. Any suggestions for daily life? Yeah, because it's quite natural once we're not meditating and we get involved in our daily activities. It's quite natural, normal that we can lose some perspective because things become more complicated. The simplicity of just sitting and being and letting go of activity and concerns for a time. That's why it's so helpful just to see what are the elements at play and how the Dharma works, how reality is, how suffering comes and how it's released, so as we can understand. So the more we practice, the more we can practice bringing it into our daily life. So integrating this understanding. It's always helpful if we have the opportunity to have times where we can engage in daily life, but in a more a more intentionally mindful way. Like sometimes when you're on certain retreats, it's not just sitting meditation, you do walking meditation, you do karma yoga, like work in the kitchen or washing up or cooking or cleaning. And you're going through your daily activities, but in the context of a retreat, this is so helpful to just slow things down a little, engage less socially when you're on doing noble silence. So you have the opportunity to integrate much more this understanding in a slower way. And then, from there, when you're back in your normal life and maybe you've got time restrictions, you've got work pressures, you've got family pressures, working in time constraints, you still have to bring your practice in and try to slow things down as much as you can. Not to the point that you totally annoy everyone else, and you just don't manage to get things done, but almost challenging your own habits of rushing or the pressure that we put on ourselves. We've learned to put this pressure on ourselves. This is something I've learned a lot in my life. It used to be once I got into activity, there was this just momentum that wouldn't stop until something was done. And then reflecting back, I feel like I was taken over rather than did it really mindfully. But the more you determine and practice to bring mindfulness into your everyday life, when you're standing at a queue waiting, do it really mindfully. Do standing meditation, breathing meditation. When you're walking somewhere, the habitual thing is to already think of what's going to happen when I'm at my destination, right? Or rushing there, so you're ahead of yourself. Can you just go with each step and breathe out any concerns or worries, So there's lots of ways we can practice in daily life. And it's very rewarding because you can really flip some of those habitual mind states and the learned pressures we put on ourselves. We think it's coming from the world, and sometimes other people are putting pressure on us. But often like our super ego puts a lot of pressure on ourselves. So if we can start to undo some of that conditioning, you can release a lot of stress within, which is very helpful to see. Anyway, a lot could be said about daily life. I hope that's enough for now. Take any opportunity you can in your daily life. Part of the practice of the 4 foundations of mindfulness, the Buddha actually laid it out, just be mindful while you're walking, sitting, standing, lying down, when you're stretching, when you're going to the toilet, when you're eating, when you're drinking, when you're going somewhere, when you're talking. In absolutely every activity, we just remind ourselves to be present and let go of any tension. Okay, so could you please give us some advice on dealing with the dark night of the soul, how one can let go of the traumas that seem to be stuck on this identity created by the delusional mind? Well, dark night of the soul, it can refer to different things, different experiences, and it's a typical phrase referring to, say, a period in our spiritual journey where it seems like we almost reach rock bottom, like hopelessness, despair, interminable sense of oppression or frustration or confusion sometimes. So dark night of the soul is a place that we all actually will, on a spiritual journey, encounter. So to know this is helpful. In those places, a lot of powerful qualities can be developed. Powerful patience, but trust and faith. Trust in your own intention, in the direction of one's spiritual journey, one's spiritual path. And trust in yourself, the capacity, you have the capacity to awaken. And awakening is not at the, ultimately, awakening isn't at the, the end of the rainbow, which is off in the future. It's always, the potential is always here and now. But, we do move through spaces, and if there has been trauma in our lives, and we've all experienced some kind of trauma, but for some people, there can be acute trauma. And so this leaves conditioned imprints, and we need to do some psycho-spiritual work oftentimes to work through the results of this. So there are plenty of resources out there online, in books, with therapists, skilled psycho-spiritual workers to help you move through these places. And as someone mentioned, I've recently put up a series of meditations on our website, vivekahermitage.com, on embodying awareness and cultivating metta. And one of those meditations really helps you work with painful feelings and the resonances of such things as trauma that can arise. So have a listen to those and see if they're helpful. But be really kind to yourself in the process. Often we re-traumatize ourselves by thinking somehow this is all my fault. I just can't work through all this. I'm never going to get out of this. Thinking I'm hopeless and all that. Just don't believe the mind. Don't believe the mind. Have a lot of kindness for yourself, compassion. Bring these things up. A lot of people are caught in difficult emotional, mental spaces. You're not the only one. So when we think of others and we wish others to be free of such things, we bring this back to ourselves as well. May I also learn what it is to have kindness and compassion and release the heart, the mind from attachment to these experiences, the clinging. It's not rejecting. It actually comes through allowing and opening. So try those meditations, see how you go. When there are no teachers near you, this is awesome. Well, that's great. Thanks, Deborah. Do I practice yoga also? I do a little bit of yoga, have been, it's not very structured, but I've got a few stretches and exercises that I do every day just because it helps my body so much. And if I don't do them, I really feel it. But obviously it also helps the heart and the mind. I noticed that I changed from a very scared, contracted state to an open, spacious state during this guided meditation. Well, that's great. You can always listen to these meditations again as well on the YouTube channel, either in the main video section, or sometimes Jayasara archives the live streams, and you'll find them under, I think, or under the videos in the playlist of guided meditations or guided community meditations. You can always come back and do them again. And guided meditations, speaking to that question earlier about working with trauma and dark night of the soul, listening to Dharma, listening to guided meditations through these times are a great, great resource. So rely on them. They will really help. Very good. So what else have we got going here? When I closed my eyes, I could only see the color saffron behind the eyelids. Focus on the breath. I felt I was seeing out from inside my chest through a saffron-colored shirt. That's a nice experience. Thank you. I feel free and my mind is absent. It's wonderful sometimes. Cling again, then I cling again, and my feelings come back and my mind takes on personality again. That's right. That's how it is. But these times of meditation we can let go of that sense of personality or identifying with everything and experience that spaciousness, the more let's say the substratum or more essential qualities. The personality is a conditioned structure which helps us navigate this world. So we're not trying to get rid of it. We will always function within it, but we come to know it as a constructed thing. And like many constructed things, they can be helpful. But once we know their nature, we're not deluded by them or caught by them. So the Buddha said, even of himself, when he used the words I and referred to himself and his body, he can still refer to himself as a person, a thing, and I'm going somewhere, I'm doing this. And but he said, I use those conventions without being deluded by them. I understand what they are, and he's not attached to them as a real me or mine or substantial thing. But there is this karmic existence, if you like, that we're, for want of better words, that we're involved in. So, personality constructs have been developed in this life and they help us navigate. But our understanding from the meditative and from the wisdom that arises through our meditation experience is that we can see through them. We use them and see through them. They're not who and what we are. So things become much lighter and we can forgive others and forgive ourselves for our mistakes more easily. And sometimes those kind of embedded regrets we can let go of because we see this conditioned mind in the past. Of course, it's made mistakes, but we can learn how to be more compassionate and forgiving with others as much as with ourselves in this path of awakening. Do you think one should combine meditation with psychotherapy? Is meditation alone enough for processing all the undigested emotions, memories from the past? It depends. Everyone's different. For some people, psychotherapeutic processes can be really helpful. I would just say, potentially depending on your therapist and the paradigm of the therapy, if it's a spiritually informed therapy, in that it allows for recognizing, say, your true nature and allows for an understanding of what one's working through mentally, physically, emotionally, conditioned patterns that have become habitually embedded and that we're working to find a way to release. So helpful for some people, not necessary for everyone. I remember Lama Yeshe used to say, be your own therapist. For some of us, the process of the practice path can be your own therapy. For others, we need it's helpful to have a relationship in a therapeutic relationship, particularly to work through some heavy stuff if need be. Or if we're having problems in our relational life, there may be stuff we're not seeing, habitual ways of being that we could, it would be helpful to get some feedback on. Okay, scroll, take a few more questions. I'm just scrolling back to see that. Having love and compassion for oneself is not wrong, but telling this to someone while in turmoil is not practical. That's true. Well, right but not true, true but not right. It depends. Everything depends. If someone's experiencing turmoil, obviously, I'm not telling you must have compassion and kindness for yourself. Perhaps suggesting, what is it? Can you bring a little kindness in there? Because often turmoil, there's a lot of self-hatred in there. Well, we hate the confusion and we hate the turmoil. And that keeps it spinning. It's natural response that we dislike this powerfully painful state. So depending on the situation, obviously, it's not an order or a commandment, be kind to yourself. You must be compassionate. It's like, how can we open? And you'll find this in my meditations. It's learning to ask a question to yourself, become self-reflective. Can I, or how can I be kind with this experience or this moment? A real inquiry, open question, not a demand. Not expecting any outcome, any particular kind of outcome, but just inquiring. Is there another way of being with this that doesn't feel so painful? If you don't make that inquiry, what happens? The suffering may get worse. We may have a spontaneous moment of awareness to come out of it, and then we're drawn back in. So inquiry, self-reflection has to start somewhere, and often the spiritual path starts with intense. Well, we start our spiritual path when we're intense suffering, when we find ourselves in intense suffering and we say, is there another way? There must be a way out, or whatever question comes to you in that moment. This is the beginning of what the Buddha sometimes calls the search, the arising of faith, the beginning of inquiry. And this isn't just at the beginning of the path. We might have times of deep distress where we have to keep, if you like, re-entering the inquiry, re-entering the path, rediscovering. So I hope that's helpful. Couple more questions. Let's see. The psychotherapist is a good part of a mental health safety plan, indeed. Okay, I think we've come to the end of the questions for now. There's a lot of comments in there, sorry if I've inadvertently missed your question, but just picked out the ones that I felt would be good for everyone to also hear response to. So perhaps it's time that we close this session, and I hope it's been helpful for everyone. Whatever it's brought up for you, Dharma. I was talking about the word Dharma earlier. Dharma is everything. Another translation is phenomena. It's everything that appears. If we're willing to look at that, be with that, and learn from that, that is the greatest blessing. That is the path. So wherever we're at, whatever our life experience is, this is our moment of awakening. This is our path of awakening. So it's really engaging your life with exactly where you find yourself, with how it is. There's nothing lacking. Begin to make those inquiries. Gather your Dharma supports to help you see and understand what's going on and how to cultivate each moment of awareness with our understanding, our intention for harmlessness, to live in this world in a way that we bring less harm, not more harm, less harm to ourselves, less harm to others. Okay. So wish you all the best, everyone, and I'll see you again in 2 weeks' time. And we'll post the time and the date again within a few days on YouTube and on our website. So thank you for all your questions and reflections, and for your meditation and your own spiritual work in this world. May all beings come out of suffering. Be well. Bye for now.